So this is something we want to do for a long time. Like talking about the things that we usually talk like when we hang out with friends, and also we want to do some content creation. So this is something that we decided to just do.
Just give it a go, sort of.
Yeah. Today, like we went for a walk, and then we were just like talking about this, and then we were like, okay, you know what? Like we know we want to do this, and like we didn't really start. Yeah. So we finally decided like
we don't need to think too much. We can just fucking
just do it and
turn
just
the
talk
camera
about
on
this.
and talk about something and see where it goes, sort of thing.
Yeah. So for the first topic, it's
a bit weird though, because we haven't done any conversations in English.
That's true.
Probably never.
Yeah.
Just two of us.
It was always Sinhala, and we talk about these things in Sinhalese, but I think this is the first time.
I think our friendship is more than 12 years old, or 14 years, but first time we're having a conversation in English, just one-on-one.
That's true, yeah. So to kick off, we decided to just talk about one of the major things that I came through, that I was thinking for a long time and try to understand, and that is basically what is a thought. So that is the topic that we decided to talk about
and get started.
To get started, yeah. So to give some background, I'll just tell you like why I wanna ask this question from Give. So like with our usual life, like the work, commitments, relationships, all sort of things, like we usually like go through some sort of thoughts every day, from the start of the day to the end of the day. We just keep thinking about things, yeah. And I was like, that there was a point that like sometimes it just get too much, and sometimes we just get stuck in one thought and we go inside, and then it just like keep going in like a rabbit hole and just overthinking and all that. So this is something I think initially I asked you about this long time ago, and I got a good answer. So I wanted to talk about this. So I think the first question that I want to ask from you is, so what do you think about what is a thought? Like I know that's a big topic, but we can maybe like get into that, and maybe we can slowly navigate through that concept.
Yeah. So the funniest thing is that very question is so ironic, because we're talking about thoughts, and then you're asking me what my thoughts are on thoughts.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
That's the very ironic part, because we are so stuck in our thoughts, right? And I understand where the dilemma is coming from, because we start questioning about thoughts when we don't like our thoughts, basically. When the thoughts are enjoyable, we don't have any problem with the thoughts.
Yeah.
But when the thoughts started getting irritating, that's when we start questioning, what the fuck is this, right?
Yeah.
And where is this coming from? Why am I stuck in? Because it's a trouble.
Yeah.
Right. That's the basic idea behind it. Why people start questioning this? Okay, what are my thoughts, and why can't I sort of get rid of it? To address this topic, let's quickly touch base on the basic idea of what thoughts are, where it comes from, and then we can dive sort of deep into how we deal with our thoughts.
Yeah, I want to say that's a very interesting point that you brought, because like when you say that, I was like thinking, yeah, actually, like when I'm thinking about, like when I'm like I obviously have thoughts, but the point where I actually notice that I'm thinking about something is where like when it gets when it becomes annoying. When it becomes like, why I'm thinking about this, like what's happening. So that's a very interesting point. Yeah.
Until that comes, like, you don't have any problem with thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you don't even care whether it exists.
You
or
don't
not.
notice that. You just keep going. Yeah.
So the basic idea is, what is a thought, right? Now, we all think, regardless of who you are, you all think. We all think as human beings, and I think that's what set us apart from other species in terms of like other beings, animals, and all that stuff. That we have this intelligence, the intellect, and we have this thinking process, the thoughts, and then we think, right? And other animals do not inherit this, and it's a part of this basic human mechanism. And the main thing we need to understand is that, okay, if I ask you a question, when you started thinking, when did you start thinking? First,
that I
right?
have no idea.
Here's the thing, like, so you've been with toddlers, been around toddlers, right?
Yeah.
Little babies. Do you think they think?
Probably, yeah.
They can.
guess.
The thing is, right? Okay, if I ask you a question, how do you think? What do you used to think? Like in terms of like thinking process, how do you think? You use language to think, right?
Correct.
This whole thinking is mainly based on language. Right? We use language to process, like, and say sometimes with your case, like you might be thinking in English or Sinhala, right? It's just the language that we used to, and we need language to think.
Yeah.
The basic idea, right? And then we also think with visuals. We also think with maybe sounds, and there's a lot going on when it comes to this whole process, imagination part, the mental aspects of it. But the main idea behind thoughts is that you require a language to think. Basic idea.
Yeah.
Right. But when you don't have any language at hand, when you're a little baby, right? When you do not know any single word, do you think still they think?
I think that's a very interesting point. Because in that case, like in my mind, like can't really think how we actually can think of anything, because we don't have any words or like a way to like, you know, like
Process.
to actually, to think, It's very interesting,
So the thing is, right, babies, they don't think. But they experience. It doesn't mean they're not dead. They're not live. Actually, to be honest, they are more live and present than any adult you can find. Because given a situation, right, if there's a baby here, that baby is just present in this place. Right? But if you're sitting next to the baby, you're partially with the baby, engaging, but your mind is thinking about other shit from future and the past.
That's true. Yeah.
You're not there.
Yeah.
100%. But that baby is 100% there, receptive to what's going on around them. Right? So in that aspect, thinking has cut down our being in this moment. Right?
That's a very interesting point. Yeah.
So that's the basic idea you need to understand. Where is this? So we have this constant chatter in our mind. This is the problem, right? So let's get into the main point. We have this constant chatter in our mind, constantly talking about something. No matter what we lay our eyes on, right? It will generate some words.
Yeah.
And keep processing and processing and processing. And the thing is, it's not just what's in front of you that you're thinking about. You keep bringing stuff from the past, and then you project stuff into the future, and you still process.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the whole dilemma that we get caught up in. But when you're a baby, you don't have that. But then babies, we were babies at some point.
Yeah.
We were at a place where we didn't have any words. So basically we didn't think about anything. But that did not mean we were dead or anything like that. We were more alive than we've been in our adulthood.
So
at any given.
Yeah. So is it more like when we were babies, we didn't have much information accumulated to actually think about things or think about the past or the future. Like we didn't have many information
Yeah. So I'll break it down like this. So it's very easy to understand. So when you take you as a person, as a whole, right? You have your body, physical body that you know of. That makes sense. Timal is here, Timal's body, right?
Yeah.
And then the other aspect is the part that we cannot see. Your mental aspect of you, who you are. And this whole system is a collaboration between the mental process and the physical. The physical body part we know because we see it every day. And there's these identifications that we get into. And simply because no one's teaching us. There's no one to guide us or give us a better understanding about what these things are. Simply because we are trained on the things that's available in the society, and that's how our basic software is programmed from our outside, from our parents to adults to school to everyone around us. Program that baby's mind, or that feed so many information into that baby's mind, and that baby start thinking according to the information that they're given.
Yeah.
That's the basic round of information gathering in your mind, and then that slowly grows up, and then all of a sudden after you just know that you're thinking, you're so identified with your thinking mind, you think that is you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right, this identification of, so there's two different identifications that we go through as humans. The first thing is we think we are our body. I am my physical body, and which is not true. You are not your physical body. If you are your physical body, you never will say my body.
Interesting.
You don't refer to as me, you refer to as my body. Simply it means like you own your body, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So you are not your body, right? But we think we are our body. That's the first identification we go through. We can go deep into this later, but for now, right?
Yeah.
And
But,
second identification is like once you're over with, like, you think you're your mind. Right? When it comes to mind has different aspects to it. Mind is not just one thing, one layer. But what we know as our mind is our thinking mind. Which did not, by the way, which did not exist when you were a baby.
Interesting.
Your mind existed when you were a baby, right? You have the psychological part, but not the thinking aspect. But now as an adult, the only aspect you know as your mind is the thinking part.
So you mean like
You think you are your thinking mind.
that chatter, right?
Chatter,
Yeah.
right? Which also says, right? So by observing the content in that thinking process, the thoughts, if it's good, we think I'm a good person. If it's a bad one, we think I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
But the thing is, your thinking mind, your thoughts are not you. It cannot be, right? When you're a baby, you still were there.
Yeah.
You existed as a human being. You simply did not have your thoughts. Now you're thinking, I am my thoughts. How fucked up is that? That identification is what fucks us up.
That is,
Because we don't know how to create space between myself and my thoughts. The very identification of my thoughts are me is what fucks us up.
That's an interesting,
Right?
yeah, that's an interesting way to think.
So the basic question I ask everyone is like, okay, you think, right? How do you think? You use a language, right? And where did language come from? Who taught you that language? All the words that you know. For an example, right? If I say coffee, right? We have this general identification around, we both know what a coffee is. But beyond that, when you say a word coffee, right? What I've given into that word, the meaning I've given into that word versus what you've given into that could be two completely different things. Apart from we both know we can buy a coffee from a shop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that idea of this word, like the meaning we put behind this word, is actually built up since the first day you heard about coffee. That's the first introduction to that word. Right? And then every time you had some sort of experience or interaction with this word coffee, it get added up, right?
Yeah.
So now after 29 years, when you're talking about coffee, all these things create that meaning what you've given into coffee.
So it's more like so when I think about a coffee, I actually, if I actually scan my thought, it's actually more like a emotion. Like when I think about a coffee, I feel like it's like a package of like information. Like,
Yes.
Like I can think so many things, like the good times, the conversation that I had over coffee, like everything. It's just there, like the whole package.
The whole thing is there.
Yeah.
And it could be different to other people, right? And what I learn as coffee is completely based on my experience with coffee. That when you come from different walks of life, the different meanings you've given to different words, they change, right? So these words, what is, like, we think with words, right? And all these words we learn from outside. Everyone teach us words, right? And we simply take those words for the how do you say? We don't know, when we are young, we don't know how to analyze things, right? So what we do is we take it for the word's sake. Like when someone says, oh, this is the definition of this, this is what it means. We just take it for that word's sake because we trust other people, especially adults, to know better than us. So we simply take it for that thing. And all these thoughts that you have in your mind came from outside, right? They belong to the outside world. Say you were born 500 years ago in a different part of the world, right? Your thinking process will be completely different right now.
That's true. Yeah.
But you still would exist as a human being. The same human being would not change a bit. But the whole thought process is different. And this thought process is something like this. When you are born into this world, right, it gives you this base software to operate. That's how this world works. And that becomes your basic programming. Because without it, you don't know how to navigate. Say a person from 500 years ago ended up landing here somehow. They will be lost. They will be clueless. Because they don't know anything about right now. Right? Because that information is not given to them. Information is just information.
Yeah.
Right? It's good, useful, utilitarian. It's a tool. Thinking is also a tool, right? But what has happened is that it has grown to a place that we are so identified with our thinking process, we think, I am my thoughts, right? That's the problem. So when you say everything that you process in your mind belongs to the outside world, it does not belong to you.
So so circling back to the topic, where what is a thought? So so in that case, like, you know, we thinking about good thoughts, bad thoughts, and when it gets bad, we get annoyed, and that's where we like actually think about, okay, what I'm thinking. So so in that case, I feel like thinking is like it's like a part that we're gonna do that anyway, right? And so why are we feeling like why do we why are you feeling bad about that?
Here's the
like
thing.
why do we have to do it?
Okay. Say you get a gun. Gun, or say a knife, right? Let's not go to the gun. Knife. Knife is a tool. It also can be a weapon. It can be used in so many different ways. Knife is not good. Knife is not bad. It's simply a tool, right? Anyone can use it according to their necessity. So thoughts are like that. It's a tool that's given to you. For an example, like,
Interesting.
if you need to get something done in your life, you have to think about it. Like, you have to plan ahead, you have to process it, and then it's not a bad thing. It's very useful tool, right? But we don't see our thinking process as a tool. Instead, we identify it as myself. This basic identification is the problem. So the first part in addressing this whole thing is to create space between you like I said, you and your thoughts. How can you put your thoughts there and look at it as if it wasn't you?
So it's like if I have a bad thought, that means it's not like. So usually what I do is if I get a bad thought, I was like thinking, okay, so like if I feel that, if I think about that, means I am that, like I am that bad person. Like why did I think like that?
Yeah.
Why did I do it? Kind of thing. So it's just like I attach that to myself, and that actually I think that's where I get annoyed. Like why I'm like this kind of thing.
Yes.
Like that's the question that arises from that.
So the thing is, right, like it's like thinking is simply a process, right? But when you don't have awareness of what's going on, right? Say if you give a kid that knife, they don't know what it is, they don't know how to use it, they will end up with so many cuts and it will be so painful.
Yeah.
Say a good Japanese knife, right? Chef's knife. And you gave the same thing to a chef, a skilled chef. He will use it like magic.
Yeah, that's true.
Simply because he knows what that knife is and what it's capable of and what he can use it for. A baby wouldn't know it. So the same thing, because we don't have awareness of what our thought process is, how it works, this whole dilemma is created.
That's interesting.
So in addressing this whole thing, so say we say we have good thoughts, we have bad thoughts, that step is a second step. Because what you're doing is there is a person who's observing inside you, your thoughts, right? Otherwise, like in that very sentence, right, you have created the separation, but you don't know it exists. You're saying my thoughts are annoying sometimes, right? And when you're saying there is a person inside you who noticed that these thoughts are annoying.
That's correct.
There is a person who actually processed these thoughts and came to a conclusion that these thoughts are bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's already separation. There's someone who's judging these thoughts.
That, yeah.
Observing plus judging.
Yeah.
Right? The judgment we have to address at the second point. But main idea is that it already exists in our mind, like, oh, there is an observer who's noticing this. But we are not noticing about that aspect of it.
So that's a very interesting point, because there was a period of in my life where I think I didn't notice that like that separation, like my life was pretty much like on an
Pilot sort of.
yeah, or like autopilot sort of thing. It just happens, and like I do things, and then I sometimes I'm thinking about it, but it just happened. Like like I had no grasp on that.
Yeah.
But I think now I have that separation where I can actually think, okay, like why I'm getting that, like why I'm thinking about this, like what's the like where this is coming from. So that's a very interesting point that we actually talked before, like that observer thing. Maybe maybe I'll ask you that in a separate one, because this is like a very big topic, I believe. Before getting into more stuff, I want to ask another question. Like, so you mentioned about a software, right? So what is that? Like what? Like I want to like I understand, like we talk about this, but I want to like maybe give a little idea of what is
software is. So like the way to look at it as like think yourself as a computer, right? So when it comes to computer has the hardware and the software. So your physical body, right, think of it as your hardware, and then simply your mental process becomes the software. Yeah. This is a very easy way to understand the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And what does the software do? I'm going to ask you because you're a software engineer.
Yeah. So, like software is usually like we used to communicate with hardware, and like we utilize the hardware to actually do something. That's that's pretty much how I understand. So like we need a good software to actually get a good output from a hardware. Yeah. So it depends on the software.
Forget about good or bad. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Basic concept is you have a computer, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't work without an operating system.
That's correct. Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
a two piece of hardware sitting there.
Yeah.
Nobody would know what the fuck that is. Simply that. It wouldn't have any operations going on.
Yeah.
Right? So simply your body will be just sitting without doing anything if you don't have your software. Mental process.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right? That mental process is what put this whole thing together.
Yeah.
Makes you a human being. Right? So for an example, like when you see fire, you know not to touch it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a part of your software. Like you know already, it's pre-programmed. How you know? People have told you, but more than that, you've burned yourself many times with fire, using fire. With experience, you already know. So
That's true.
it's part of your software, something like that. Software is what helps you operate.
Yeah.
Right. When it says like I operate like Git, you operate like Tima. Where the distinct, it's just a different version of the software.
That's
right?
true.
And it was programmed by the people around us since we were kids. So our parents taught us how to think. Our parents or school taught us how to eat,
Yeah.
how to do this, how to do that. Everything was programmed.
Yeah.
And we were born with no software in that aspect,
Yeah.
right? Like
That's
we know.
that's a very interesting point, because if you think about it, like we all, like if you think about the software hardware part, this body, like we all have this, like, you know, we all have this, the same thing, we all have two hands, all that. So the hardware is pretty much same, but what it makes us unique is kind of how we use that hardware to
Exactly.
actually,
So
you know,
say you take two different people from two different corners of the world. There is no corner in the world because it's round, but
Yeah.
I'm saying like two different parts of the world, right?
yeah,
And they operate differently. And
Yeah.
something happened in front of them, they react differently.
yeah,
How does that happen? And when you say like you have a physical body, how different you are to someone else from, you know, say US or like, you know, Asia, like a different country, or say, people say, okay, physically we look different, but that's just bullshit, right? Like you get a PC, you can put not any sort of like cover skin onto it. It's
Yeah.
still the same
Yeah.
PC, right?
Yeah.
What makes it different is like how you do things, how you think, how you
Process
operate,
things,
process
yeah.
things, right? And so say someone from Sri Lanka, right, was adopted when they were a baby and they grew up in US.
yeah,
They still have a, like say Sri Lankan looking body, but they don't operate like a Sri Lankan person,
that's true. That's very true.
right? So this physical body has no validity in that aspect. It's the whole mental process is what we need to consider. And in that whole process, we need to understand that our basic software is programmed by the people who were around us when we were growing up as kids.
Yeah,
And then, so they slowly teach us things, and they teach us words, right? And they teach us how to think as well, how to process things. For an example, if someone hits you, what would you do? Would you hit back, or would you forgive? Would you cry, right? It could be different to different people.
yeah,
Right? I would react in a different way and you would react in a different way. Like, say, how does that happen? Because, say someone hit me, and if I go back to my mother and say it, she might say, oh, you have to hit back. Or someone might say, oh, no, forgive. Right? So you get trained to think in a different way.
yeah,
That's the software. So they lay it up slowly, according to how they do it.
yeah,
Right?
that's true.
But that doesn't mean they know everything.
And also we accumulate all sort of information from our friends, or the people that we talk
and
to.
experiences.
Yeah.
So when you engage with the society, things happen.
Yeah.
And then you have this emotion. As a human being, you're inherited with your emotion part, right? Emotions are basically your, how do I say it? Emotions is what gives you this life that feel like you so for an example, you can create an intelligence with AI, but what AI wouldn't have is that our emotions.
That's right.
It makes us who we are as beings, human beings, give us that softness or whatever, that empathy or all these soft things that intellect cannot really process. The feelings, right? Emotions. And they get created through this chemical process in our brain. And when these things happen, for an example, when you get sad, your whole chemistry changes. How do you deal with something like that? When you get angry, how do you deal with something like that? And this is where it gets so confusing, because we day in, day out deal with emotions, and every interaction, it creates sort of an emotional trigger in our system. And when how to deal with these things, how to process these things is not available. For an example, when you go to school, they teach you how to do maths, right? All these crazy things, right? Out of the world sort of looking advanced things. But they never teach you how to deal with your emotions. When you feel sad, what the fuck do you do? It's not available.
Yeah.
So that confusion is, but like, it's just given. As in, like, it's not available as part of our education. So basically prone to be people who are suffering as adults. That's
very interesting. And I was, like, when you're saying that, I was thinking, again, circling back to the question. So we talk about emotions and thoughts, yeah. And like when I was thinking, okay, how did I get this thought? It's actually, I think, because I have a unsettling emotion that I don't like, and then I question where this emotion comes from, and I think that's where I actually started to think about, and I think that's where the thought is actually coming to the play. Maybe this is how I that's what I was thinking.
So I understand
what do
the
you
question.
think about that?
So here's the thing: when we're born, we were given with a whole heap of information, so much, and then they kind of teach us how to process this information as well. But that teaching, the way of processing this information is not efficient. It's not quite there, up there. Otherwise, everyone will be happy, right? Because as human beings, we all like to be happy and blissful and all that. But majority of the time, you talk to anyone, everyone's suffering.
That's true.
But that happiness, sort of that blissful state, is a chemical reaction here in your system, and it's available for you at any given point. But you're simply opting out of it because you don't know it's available, sort of thing. And the thing is that information you are given, the way you process it, it's not inefficient. So, for an example, how do you determine if a software is good or not?
Interesting. I think the way we can determine is if we have an emotion, and if we
just talk about software.
Okay, so if we process something and the outcome is not good enough, or it's not the quality that we expected, or if we're not getting the best out of our hardware, then that is a bad software.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So a software is designed to do something.
Yeah.
Say an image processing software, right? And you process your images through the software, and if the outcome is good, right, you can say the software is good.
Yeah.
And if the outcome is bad, the quality of the outcome is bad, you can simply say the software is bad.
Software,
Right. It's not up there. And then, yes, we are given a basic software operating system, and it's programmed by outside people, and it's done very unconsciously. It's not done in a conscious way, because they have no clue what they're doing, especially given the backgrounds we grew up in, and also the backgrounds we are exposed to right now. We see now people are getting more conscious about raising kids, but in a generalized manner, like it's not still there. People don't know what they're doing. So that we are given an operating system, it does not mean it's a good software. It's just simply a software.
We just have like a base code.
Yeah. Right. So in an image processing thing, like, you look at the outcome of the software, you put information through, the software processes it, and then you have an outcome. If the outcome is satisfactory, you say, okay, it's a good software, then you can keep using it, right? But then if you're not happy with the outcome, now you have to change the software, right? So simply, we are a human being. We have a physical body, and we have the thinking process, which is our software. What is our product? If I ask you.
I think the product should be the thoughts or the emotions, the final.
No. The product is very life you're living.
Interesting.
Your life your being is the product, right? And if your life is joyful and it's amazing, the software is great. No matter what information comes through, it processes and gives you outcome where you can still be exuberating with life. That's a good software. But if you're always down and if you're always upset and sad and all that, right?
Then
that means that software does not know how to process that information that you're given.
So it's processing, but there's some some bug in the system.
Exactly, but it's not a purified processing. It's not. There's so many bugs inside that software. That's why the quality is that bad. So this is what happens when you're suffering in your life, especially when your life situations becomes so tight or tense, agitating sort of thing. That's when you start questioning what the fuck I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Because you sense something. Okay, something is wrong, but you just don't know where to pinpoint. You just don't know where to look. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. You know something is wrong. You just don't know what is wrong.
What is wrong?
Right. So, so when an information is given, if you know how to process it properly, no matter what's given to you, you will process it in a way that's easy for you. Some people say oh, you're giving excuses, but at the end of the day, what matters is whether you live.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just if I'm happy with my life, that's it. That's all I want.
And there's the moral part where you question sort of, okay, what if you cause harm in order for you to be happy? It does not happen because when you're operating, right, you always operate from where I'm talking about, that place, that processing. It involves everyone, right?
Yeah.
It does not mean you're going to please other people or their egos or their needs. Simply not that. But you're intentionally, you're not harming anyone, causing anyone. So in Buddhist philosophies, it says when you're taking an action, think about that. Think about what it's going to affect, how it's going to affect you and people around you. If it's not doing any harm to any of those parties, to other people or you, then you can simply do it. So that's basically enough for a moral aspect, right?
Yeah.
You're not causing trouble for other people or doing anything like that. But other than that, you can do anything. You just have to come up with the best excuse. When you get really good at this, the person who can come up with the excuse that to make themselves feel better wins in this game. But not in the process that you think, because you're still thinking on a surface level. Where I'm coming from, there's no judgment. And when you look at your thoughts, you don't think about those thoughts as, oh, this is a good thought, this is a bad thought. Because where I'm talking about, when you see a thought, you simply see a thought. It's neither good nor bad for you.
It's like a neutral
space, right? But right now, our mind operates from a polarity. Right? We are so trained, and it's a practice. We're super trained. We just simply go and look what is good, what is bad. We just want to judge.
Yeah,
that's how we are trained. It's not our fault. But when you're coming from a place like that, it's very hard to deal with these things.
Yeah, that's a very interesting things that we talk about. I think for this episode, I think this is a good place to maybe take a break, I think we talk about the general idea of what's a thought, and like like what we usually do when we when we get some emotions, and how a thought actually works.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just because let's end on a thing that way, a practical way to observe thoughts. Right? I'll say something, because the whole idea is to create a very basic case, right? Don't overthink, right? In the sense that about this whole process, you can break it down. So no matter how hard you try to sort out the whole going into a rabbit hole thing in your mind, you won't be able to address it at that intensity right now, right? So you need to take baby steps. First, you need to master that perspective where you're simply observing your thoughts, right? That's the first step. It's like when you have a hang of it, then you can observe the thoughts and look into the content and see, where this thought come from, right? That's the second step. You can't go there at the beginning. So you have to practice watching. I'm thinking. Let's look at the thinking process. You create a separation. You take a step back from the thinking process. So what I did actively was to set alarms on my phone, right? Reminders. Maybe say, for an example, you set 4 reminders during the day. This is simply because practice is the key thing. When you talk about how your brain operates with neural pathways, neural networks, and these neural pathways, according to my experience, right, I've seen that like they work in 2 different ways. One is because of repetition. You get so used to like repeating things, you just keep using them, because the brain try to use the least resistant path to save energy. So you just use the easiest way to process something. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that you don't remember everything that happened in your life, do you?
No.
But you do remember when some emotion was triggered, whether it was a good emotion or a bad emotion. So the second way to access memory is sort of like you have an emotional attachment or something to that particular thing. So that's how the neural networks work. So right now, when you're in a process where you don't have any practiced threads in your system to do something specific, you need to create that. And that can only be done through repetition. So it's important to practice the way I'm saying right now, because that's how I did it. Because there was no observer in your mind when you're starting to observe this whole thing. So you need to first create that observer, and that observer is a neural pathway.
So that is the first step.
And that can be created through repetition.
So that creating the separation.
Right? Or the observer, right? And that can be done through repetition. So when you set a reminder, all you simply do is you say, it's time to look at my thoughts.
Interesting.
That's all you say, right? And try it. But at the beginning, when you say, it's time to look at my thoughts, you're simply observing. You're not trying to look at the goods, bads, rights and wrongs inside them. You're simply watching that, there is a thinking process that's happening, and I'm thinking.
So is it like when you see the reminder, you think, what do I think now? Is it something like that?
No. You simply say, it's time to look at my thoughts. Simply say it. And you won't be able to look at your thoughts at the beginning.
Interesting.
Don't stress out, because you won't, because you don't know what the fuck you're, like when I'm saying this, you don't even know what I'm talking about. Right? So, but what happens is, when you do it over a period of time, say 4 reminders every day, do it for 2 weeks, right? If you do this for 2 weeks, end of 2 weeks, you won't need any reminders. There will be someone in your minds that's saying, let's look at my thoughts now. It comes automatically because you created that neural pathway in your brain. Now it's getting stronger and stronger, right? Now, without reminders, there's someone who's saying, let's look at my thoughts. But what happens is, like, you cannot keep your attention span in your thoughts because you're not used to it. You will start looking at your thoughts at the beginning. You say, let's look at my thoughts. I'm thinking about getting an ice cream. But next minute you think about the ice cream, you're already choosing flavors. You already forgot that you're starting to think about it. It's gone out of the window.
Yeah.
But
that's
at a random point, you will be, oh shit, I was thinking about this, but then I get carried away. Then you get upset. But don't be upset because you have a second reminder that's coming. Baby steps, right? You cannot do this at once, right? So when the second reminder comes, okay, again, time to look at my thoughts. 2-3 seconds, you'll be gone out of the window. Like you won't say it, but over a period of time, you'll be like, oh, I can last this attention. Watch the observer who's watching my thoughts. I can expand it. It's slowly expanding. At the beginning, it's a couple of seconds. Maybe now I can last it. It's lasting for 30 seconds. And the funny thing is, it's not waiting for the reminder to come. At random times, it just keeps coming up.
Nice.
That's how you get a hang of this. Practice. Practice is the key. You need to, because when you ask me that question, thoughts are bothering me, you understand that your whole existence is dependent on this one thing, right? And it has that power. If you actually get this sorted, your whole life will be upside down change, right? And you need to practice this as if your whole life is dependent on it, because it actually does.
That's true.
Your life does not depend on money, but your life does depend on your thought process. So when you slowly do this one, start practicing, you create that gap. Once you create that gap and once you can see your thoughts clearly, then we can talk about how to address that. Because at that point, it's about how do you debug your software.
Yeah. I think it's also like, before we even debug, we need to understand there is a bug.
There is a software.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
right?
That's like the beginning.
At the beginning, you need to see that, like experience that there is a software inside.
So that's like, I think that's the first idea of separation.
Exactly. Noticing that my thought process is a separate software entity to me, myself.
That's very interesting. And also, like, in this chat, so we I think we talked about different keywords. Like the one is software that we talk about, and then perspectives, intensity. So there's like I think threads. Yeah,
we're just throwing out words here, random words. But then if you tune in, like if this goes on, you will understand how powerful these keywords are, right?
These are like small tiny words, but we actually talk about these words for like I don't know, like hours and hours. Like, you know, this is like when you go inside, like as an example, threads. Like when we go inside, it's just like a whole new concept. Like whole new thing. So I'm very excited to talk about this piece by piece. So maybe one day eventually we can sort of see the bigger picture. Yeah. I think that's pretty
for this video.
Yeah, pretty good point to stop.
Let's see where this goes.
Let's see where this goes. Yeah. For the first episode, I think this is a pretty good one. Yeah. Cool. Super ini? Ada nice.